I'm Nolan Beilstein, and welcome to another episode of Gen Z in Manufacturing, a podcast where I interview young people about their journeys in manufacturing, how they intend to influence the industry, and what they are looking for from an employer. For this episode, I welcome Ethan Schaefer, a 21-year-old student at Purdue University participating in a co-op with Fluke Reliability. Schaefer said his interest in engineering dates back to middle school, which led to him pursuing a degree in electrical engineering at Purdue. Schaefer participates in Fluke's reliability department, where he goes to customer sites with a full-time engineer to perform roller alignment on machines. Before we hear from Schaefer, please make sure to like and share this episode of Gen Z in Manufacturing. To view previous episodes, visit manufacturing.net. If you are a member of Gen Z and would like to discuss your experience in the manufacturing industry, please get in touch with me, Nolan Beilstein, at nolan@in.com. All right, Ethan, well, thank you for joining Gen Z in Manufacturing. First, wanted to start with something that you told me when we were exchanging emails. You said that manufacturing kind of sold itself to you because the nature of the industry makes it easier to enter than other fields. And I just wanted to get a clarification what you meant by that.
I guess the best way of putting it, I was kind of thinking about that myself as well, is manufacturing is arguably one of the largest industries out there. Just everything has to be made. You can design everything you want. Someone has to be the one that actually manufacture it, put it out into the field, sell it to people. And because of that, it has a larger workforce, from what I've noticed, and they like to reach out to I guess, younger applicants, because a lot of that stuff is people working there are kind of aging out of it. That's what I've been told from the management whenever I've talked to them. People are getting old, their trades are being lost, and they're trying to find more people to take up those positions and really get just newer faces in there.
So have you always had an interest in making? Is that what drew you to the industry?
I've always been trying to get like a more well-rounded understanding of the things that I want to be doing. Like if I want to learn something about electronics, I don't want to just learn about the chemistry behind electricity. I don't want to just learn the actual aspect of like working with technology on a computer. I want to get that whole well-rounded understanding. So manufacturing's just been a step in that.
And the more you learned about manufacturing, just what are some of the things you've been told by people who have worked in it, and they're describing the situation to you? What kind of opinions have you formed about the industry?
I've seen people that say that they love it, seen people that say they hate it. They've had various reasons for each way, and it kind of just depends on the company.
So yeah, I think we'll touch on that a little bit later, but I wanted to ask just how you found out about the Fluke co-op that you're participating in.
It kind of reached out to me in a funny way. I went to a career fair back at Purdue, and I spoke to a whole bunch of companies there. Didn't really get too much out of it. There's a couple companies that seemed interested, but most of them kind of fell off after an interview or two. But there was one company I spoke to, Tektronix, that seemed very interested. But at the same time, nothing really came from it. I was like, kind of forgot about it. But about a month or two later, I received an email from somebody from Fluke. I was like, what's Fluke? I've never heard of this before. And as it turns out, from what I believe, my resume went from Tektronix, went to the higher corporation Fortive, which owns Tektronix, Fluke, a whole bunch of other companies. Somehow that made its way into Fluke as a whole, and then to Fluke Reliability, and they reached out to me from there.
And so, after Fluke connected with you, what about them really made you want to join?
I guess it was just the initial kind of, I wish there was a better word for this, but just the vibe of the people working there. Over the calls and stuff that I had, the emails, everyone seemed very friendly. There was a very calm vibe about it. It wasn't somebody just staring you down over a Zoom call and just kind of wait for you to answer stuff and then just write something down and immediately answering the next question. There's a conversation between people when I was having an interview. And it was friendly, it was inviting. It seemed like a really interesting opportunity or something different. And I also didn't really have any other options at the time being, so I was like, sure, I'm going to run with this.
And I think the word you use, vibe, is something that a lot of people have been on this series have talked about, just the overall workplace environment. Is that something that your family told you to look for as you're going into the workforce, or is that just something, a desire that you've developed on your own?
I think it's honestly just kind of a bit of a desire on my own part. But in terms of just what I've kind of gotten from workplace environment is just talking to people and seeing how they react to stuff, how they respond. Are they friendly? Are they just there because someone told them to be? Which something a recruiter actually told me is, we're just here because we were told to be. I, I was like, all right, I'm not even gonna bother you then. But
Yeah, I'm sure that just drew
yeah,
you right in.
yeah, gosh.
Is that, are you hearing that a lot from your peers that are trying to do the same thing you are, just running into disinterested companies?
That's what I found. I mean, you see stuff online too. People were applying to thousands of companies and getting maybe 10 or 20 interviews. And of those 10 or 20 interviews, maybe having a span of like 8 interviews in a row, only for them to be like, nah. And it's disheartening, you know? You go through all this stuff, you go through all that process. Just getting the initial email back seems like it's hard enough. And then you go through all that process just for them to be like, yeah, it just feels like a waste of time because you start building plans. They give you dates and stuff like that, and then all that just kind of vanishes because someone decided, nah, never mind.
What kind of age range of people do you work with at your co-op?
At my co-op, more in the like late 20s, 30s. I don't think there's anyone over 40.
So you don't have much experience working with the 40-year-olds, the 50-year-olds, any people from those age demographics?
Not with Fluke. I mean, the people that I'm directly working with at the locations and customer sites, I do end up working with people of that kind of age range, and I get experience from that too.
So when you're interacting with those people, what are you thinking their perception of Gen Z workers are?
Most of the time, people try to be friendly. They listen to you. They know that you are talking about something you're knowledgeable about. Especially if you like try and show them the computer and all their values and stuff. They know that's out of their out of their comfort zone, and what you're telling them is something they have to trust. So it's a little bit different there because they have a reason to listen to Gen Z and all that kind of stuff. But I guess it can definitely vary.
You mentioned that when you go to these sites, you're accompanied by a full-time engineer. Do you work with the same one every time, or do you work with a bunch of different people from Fluke when you're going out on these customer visits?
I don't know. It's been a good variety. I think I've worked with probably like 5 or 6 different people now. I mean, heck, I only just recently got to work with my boss and meet him in person for the first time about a week ago now. So
Are you able to be exposed to a lot of your superiors, or there's no instances where it's just a gray face telling you what to do? Do you feel like they're actually interacting with you and speaking with you on your level?
yeah, I would say definitely my boss is very direct with me, especially at my previous job too. It's the same kind of thing where I was doing an internship at a local company here, and my boss's like cubicle was quite literally behind mine. I could turn around and ask him a question, and that's the same kind of vibe I'm getting here. It's just there's a little bit more distance.
So it sounds like they're pretty receptive to questions that you have and are willing to guide you along.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you heard any contraries with peers where they're going through like a co-op like you are, and then they're just not getting that mentorship, or any complaints like that?
I have a friend who is doing a co-op at a chemical manufacturer down in like Louisiana, I believe. And he was telling me like the electrical engineer there was asking him a whole bunch of questions and trying to get stuff out of him that he just didn't know, and kind of got mad at him for not knowing stuff that he had no reason to be knowing. It's things like that are just kind of odd, but I think I've been kind of lucky so far with Fluke in that regard.
What's like a piece of advice you would give to manufacturers to make new employees feel welcome and feel comfortable, that if they're unsure of something, that they don't won't feel embarrassed if they're not experts on something that they're just starting out on?
I guess make sure people feel comfortable to ask questions. Don't make it seem like these people are going to ask questions and they're going to be like, "Oh, how do you not know this already?" And it's just like you got to be able to ask a question and be like, "Oh yeah, it's this and this." And not berate somebody for not knowing things, cuz at the end of the day, it's better for someone to know what they're working on, the stuff that they're doing, and to be curious, than to just feel like they have to shut up and make guesses and do what they're told and not know what they're doing. Because that's how mistakes happen, that's how accidents happen, people lose money, people get injured. No one needs any of that stuff, and I intentionally make sure that I ask those questions so I don't get injured or mess something up and waste hundreds of thousands of dollars on some machinery or something, you know?
Yeah, and back to your customer site visits. As you're going around these facilities, this is probably some of your first exposure to these places. What opinions have you formed about the manufacturing industry after these exposures?
I've noticed that it really depends on like the type of manufacturing product as to like the quality of the site and the people that are working there. There's some sites I've been to that were spotless, they were clean, it was really nice machinery, the people there were really kind. And I've also gone to others where the stuff it's dirty, it's gross. You don't want to you don't feel like you even want to eat in this area even if they're allowed to. People that are kind of loud and it depends a lot on the location, like what they're actually manufacturing. And it's one of those things where you get a kind of vibe of, oh, you're going to this location and they're making this kind of thing. You kind of know what you're expecting going into it.
I mean, just what do you think Gen Z expects a manufacturing facility to look like?
It's well maintained, stuff is clean, people put effort into trying to make stuff work as expected. There's not like every single thing has to be done with red tape. Because if I went into a facility like that and I was actually working there, you would expect that stuff is put together properly and works as expected. And it's not people skip steps because they're trying to rush according to something, or you have to have red tape to unscrew a bolt or tighten something. It's one of those things where you'd hope that you can get in there, you can ask questions, and you can do your job effectively without having to deal with things that shouldn't be a problem.
What has surprised you the most that you just didn't expect and now you know?
I guess just the precision of some of these machines. Some of them are incredibly precise, they have extremely tight tolerances, and then there's others that are just kind of, you can hit it with a hammer, it's close enough, and that's where you can leave it. And it's like you think that these kind of products would require a little bit more care, and it really doesn't at the end of the day. But other things, they're incredibly tight tolerances. People are going to get mad at you if it's a couple thousandths of an inch off, and you got to be aware of what you're kind of working with.
And then as you near the end of your college career, obviously you'll be looking for some full-time opportunities. And you mentioned in our emails that you'll look for a company that treats employees like people rather than interchangeable assets, was the phrase you used. Just, can you elaborate a little on what both versions of that looks like?
Well, I mean, with the asset sign kind of thing, it's just the company is just treating you as if you're a person who's just there for a paycheck, and they could care less what happens to you. Because, like, there's been times where you look at something and you're like, that just doesn't look safe. And they're like, well, no, this is just how we do things. And I've been told about various cases where it's like, this company just didn't really put a lot of care into it. And they either fired somebody off just for no reason, or they let safety kind of slip away until something happens. I mean, a great example for the firing part of it is I had a family friend who was in manufacturing at Boeing for several years when I was younger. Or, well, his dad was in manufacturing. My friend was obviously my age when I was younger. But, yeah, his dad worked at Boeing for several years, and they just fired him and several other engineers, like hundreds of other engineers, just with no reason, no warning, nothing. Just kind of threw him away like that and was like, find somewhere else. And that's just not something I ever want to be a part of. I don't want to be at a company where they feel like they can just get rid of people because they think that that's the best option at the time being. I mean, we've worked at Tesla, and I've been told that people at Tesla are constantly being threatened with being fired. Like there was a time when, like in the big mega factory down in like Austin or Houston or wherever down in Texas, the battery line went down for like a day or two. And Elon Musk himself apparently went down there and said, everyone on this line is going to be fired if this doesn't get fixed within like the next day or two. I can't imagine that working in an environment like that is just healthy for anybody, physically, mentally, anything like that. And that's just not something I want to be a part of, which has kind of made me look to smaller companies in that aspect. Because usually the smaller a company, the more, I guess, the more personable they can be because they don't have the massive scale. They don't have to. They can talk to people. Like you can go see the CEO kind of thing. You know.
Do you think that a lot of Gen Z is thinking the same way you are of, I'd rather just go to a small company if it means I'll be a person?
I think it's kind of a 50-50. Um, People that are really caring about that and that's one of their main interests, absolutely, I would say so. Other people that are just desperate to try and get some money, they might not care as much. I mean, like I said, working at Tesla, you're gonna have to, all that nonsense, but you're gonna get a pretty good paycheck at the end of the day if you go through all that. And the lines at the co-ops and fairs and whatnot here show that pretty well because companies like that they have massive lines where you're waiting for an hour just to get a opportunity to talk to somebody. And like if people weren't caring about that, there wouldn't be those kind of lines, obviously. But you know, people see a name and they see a price tag along with it, and that's what they go with.
You said that people that think the way you do, they're looking towards small companies. Do you feel that the smaller manufacturers are capitalizing on this generational shift in attitudes, and they're making more of an effort to reach out to young people?
I wouldn't say that they are really putting as much effort as I feel like they really should be out there. Mainly probably because they just don't have the funds to be doing that much reaching out. Because like larger companies, they're gonna have enough money where they can spend a couple $1,000 to fly somebody out to a random college campus and have them talk to people for a day or two. But a smaller company might not have the funds to be doing something like that, and they kind of get missed out because of that. If they put out more effort, either through cheaper means like online stuff, advertising, I can definitely see how that could do some good benefits. But it's just you see larger names and stuff pop up at these career fairs, and that's where people flock to because they recognize those things. And to be honest, I don't know if I would have spoken to Fluke if I didn't know Tektronic already. Because it's one of those things where you don't know the company's name, and if you research them, if their website's not immediately intriguing, who knows if they're right fit for you, and is it worth your time to go sit there and talk with them for 10, 20 minutes for you to find out this isn't something I want to do. So they got to put their names out there and make sure people actually know who they are.
So as more Gen Z joins the workforce and really start to take over, what do you think is going to be the biggest change in the manufacturing industry?
One thing I think it would be dependent on is the kind of people that actually make it into leadership positions. Because Gen Z and everyone of my age can get into manufacturing, but if no one actually makes it into those leadership positions to make proper changes, I don't see much changing. Because I don't know if it's really a stereotype or not, but older generations like to stick to their ways. They're very hard-headed when it comes to change, and someone younger who's in a lower position is not going to change their mind on something. If they see that there's an issue somewhere, unless you put a dollar tag or a price tag to that situation or thing, they're not going to mess with it because it works as it is. And I've experienced that too.
And I was just at Fluke's Accelerate conference a few weeks ago, and I was asked to talk about kind of this series a little bit. And one of the points I kept stressing was that if a young worker comes up and asks you, why are we doing it this way? And your answer is, it's just the way we've always done it. And I'd tell them, you just lost them.
Yeah, that's it's one of those things too. I've had that in my previous job where I basically went out there and I had most of my projects for the summer was find where this process is and why is it bad. And most of the time it's just, well, we just do it this way. I'm like, well, these guys said that you're actually supposed to do it this way. Well, this is how I was trained. And it's like, well, you can do it easier this way. And a lot of the times you bring that up to people and they're like, well, that's the way we've been doing it. There's no reason to change it. That's where we're leaving it.
Thank you for watching this episode of Gen Z in Manufacturing. Please make sure to like and share the episode. To view previous episodes, visit manufacturing.net. If you are a member of Gen Z and would like to discuss your experience in the manufacturing industry, please contact Nolan Beilstein at nolan@in.com.